Hello, Warriors. The big action yesterday was a massive rotation that took place. Now, I've been talking about higher yields for the last couple months. In fact, my forecast was for 2% yield before the end of the year. Okay, so that was wrong. So how about not the direction of yields, but by the time it was going to get there, I still think that 2% is in the cards. We're stalling up here at recent highs at 170. So really you just take 34 bips from here is going to give you 2%. And all of a sudden the market woke up and they sold off all the mega cap growths yesterday. We had a pretty negative candle. Really look at this candle. It's the biggest candle in NASDAQ that we've had in quite some time, really. And up here, and my question was, why wasn't there divergence in NASDAQ? And there wasn't divergence because we never took out the high here at 16.7, missed it by about 50 points or so. And this is a pretty important area for NASDAQ to hold, this 50-day moving average here. So it's really got to dig its heels in here at this level right here, trading at 16.2. Underneath that, it opens it up if we close under the 50 to possibly fall all the way to the 200-day. Now, what gives the market hope, and now it really is a question of different markets, different sectors, the rotation is vicious, but the S&Ps did not come close yesterday to negating its move. Again, my bull bear line in the sand, 47.40, 47.45, these prior peaks. And as you can see, we didn't even test it. We haven't tested it for 3 days. So the upside could continue. So what do you do now? I still think there could be another 100 handles to the upside in the S&Ps. Much is going to depend on what happens on the NFP on Friday. We had a pretty good ADP today. It was stronger than expected, but it did nothing to support the dollar. Dollar's lower, and I'm still viewing this as being corrective. Even if we're going to head down again, I still think there's higher highs in the dollar index, which means that most of these currencies, in my view, have not bottomed, even though they're pushing. And, you have pound, which has not been a successful trade so far. And keep in mind, you probably want to be out before the NFP on Friday morning. I took a stab at the Aussie this morning as well. We'll see what happens with Aussie, if it's able to push above these highs or not in the next couple days. Under 71.70, we have some problems, and the gold is acting pretty good. And, there have been a couple of successful shorts that have been on video. There was this one, and then we had the blow off. We had a nice rally to new highs, and then caught this last week and no follow through. And, maybe we're going to go 1840 before we have one more sell-off. I'm still not convinced that we're not going to get one more break in the gold market, just like I'm not convinced that we're not going to have a new high in the Dixie. So what I would do on the Fed is, if we have a weak number, I'd be looking for to fade dollar weakness on the Fed. Something that has manifested, and it's pretty important, and it's a US dollar yen. So, for weeks I've been talking about that we were going to take out this high. And it's not only taking out the high, but how it does it. And the daily confirmed, little divergence here, but it was a very strong move. And of course, this is correlated very tightly with yields. But I think that we've reached some type of, look at it on the weekly, and you'll see that the form is there for a 3 drive, right? You have 1, you have 2, you have 3, but the strength of it, depending upon how we close this week, is still with my discipline of needing divergences to top pick a market. The yen's going to have to do some work here, and we're getting some pullbacks here from this target. And on the 4-hour, if we pull back, say, to this 50 level and then make another move to test the highs, next time we won't confirm. I'm still hanging tough on Euro Pound. We have this falling wedge here, and we had a throw over and currently back inside of the wedge. That's a signal. So now from the longs at 60, you could probably have tight risk here and risk only 30 on the trade now. Under these lows, I'd get out, but I'd be looking for recommitments if we did make new lows. Okay, so I believe this is going to tell us that the turn in the dollar is real, because I do believe that the euro will start showing relative strength against cable, even though that's not happening at this time or this week. Looking at what's happening in oil, starting to look like perhaps this may not be a rally to fade. It keeps grinding higher, but my guess is that still maybe around this 79 level, that there still could be one more break before we go to new highs in the crude. So this is an NFP week, and really recommend not being too aggressive, but we are starting to see some pressure in the markets. I think this is a big deal, what happened in NASDAQ on that candle. And it seems like Apple is one of the only stocks holding up. Okay, so we made new highs in Apple, but look at this divergence on the daily. We did not confirm in Apple. Microsoft, talked about it last week, still under a lot of pressure. I can't rule out one more high in Microsoft. And there's no doubt in my mind now, if Microsoft does rally and makes new highs, takes out this high, that there's no way the RSI is going to confirm that move. So if the S&Ps can hold that level that I talked about, 4740, and rally towards 4900, a lot of these FANG and MAGA stocks are going to be my preferred short, because they're not going to have the same type of relative strength compared to the S&P, compared to the Dow. Also want to point out that the Russell started coming off again from what was only a corrective move in IWM. So while the S&Ps were making new highs and NASDAQ failed to do it, all we've done in Russell's rally back into this gap. This to me could just be a failing rally. You're wrong back over 232, which was a breakout that turned out to be the false breakout. And this is not such a good sign. This is really the U.S. domestic economy right here. What's happening in S&Ps are more multinationals. So we'll see what the Russell does. Even Tesla gave up the ghost yesterday after starting sharply higher. I know Mike will have some more coverage on this, but this could be a failing rally. Amazon hasn't been acted great for a long time. I can't short it here. I'd rather wait for a rally. My ideal scenario is higher highs in towards the end of the month and the S&Ps towards 4,900. Write it down, and then look at where the FANG stocks are when S&Ps hit that level. Looking at some of the gold shares, they're actually, when gold has been selling off recently, you don't see the same type of weakness that you were getting in the bullion. So, that's a good sign. I still think that there's one more shot down in the miners that's going to take the GDX to the 27 to 26 handle, which is going to take this out. So keep an eye on that. The silver shares and silver itself still don't look ready. They're not acting that great. And I'm still looking for one more low in some of these silver stocks, maybe back to 61.8 in the SILJ and AG. You have one, you have a two. I'd like to see 61.8 levels in these silver shares. And that would take in silver the break I was talking about under 2140 for that to happen. And right now we're still just moving sideways. Here's the daily. You could see on these two weeklies how much stronger gold is about to push up towards the new highs. So I'm looking for, and I'm going to be patient. And if I miss it, I miss it. I still think there's going to be a shot for one more washout in the precious metals. And my rationale is going to be a 2% yield on the 10-year. You actually have to respect how metals have held up with yields rising over the past few days. And the dollar really hasn't caught a bid with higher rates either. So we'll see what happens here into, I think the NFP is going to be one of the most important NFPs in a while. And is it going to keep the Fed on course for the taper? I believe so. And is that going to generate one more pop in the dollar from maybe 95.5 or so? Looking at the weekly, it's still an up week, and we'll see what happens. There are certain times I don't have a lot of conviction. Really, when you look at this dollar index right here, how can you have conviction about direction in a sideways move that you have kind of a rectangle or a triangle developing? I do believe that if we do take out the 50-day moving average, that we will see 95, maybe even back towards 94.5, the previous highs that we broke out from. My preferred count is that we're bottoming here, we're moving sideways, and we get that one more breakout towards 98 that I've been talking about for a long time. So still like Euro pound. It's important to me. One of my favorite techniques is when you have a rising or falling wedge is to wait until you have a throw under or throw over, and then back inside the formation is your green light. That's happening here. So I will stay with this through the NFP. Not sure if I'm going to stay with cable shorts or Aussie shorts into it. This one I'm going to stay with because it's really a long-term accumulation strategy, and perhaps we even get the reversal week that we didn't have last week. That's a daily that you're seeing, and I'm waiting for the weekly to come up here. No, it's going to take a lot for it to reverse. We'd have to get back over 83, 84. So, it's about 40 away. But like the action today, and think that there's a bottom developing here. Look at the glaring divergence on multiple time frames. There's your 4-hour. There's your daily. There's your 2. Even the 2-hour diverging right here. So that's something to be paying attention to. The VIX, despite NASDAQ's 1.5% sell-off, is going to be tasty at new lows. I'm looking for new lows in the VIX, maybe towards the end of the month. I would look at long VIX products towards the end of the month, especially if we're up near the 4880, 4900 level in the S&Ps. And I just want to show you this. I talk about the SQQs, which are a triple bearish ETF on the triple Qs, and it's definitely, look at this glaring divergence. So if we get that one more high in the S&Ps and one more break here towards 540, 530, I've got to get involved. It's going to interest me, especially since we got this first, I would call what happened and is following through today is the first shot across the bow on megacap growth. So it's going to be interesting if the S&Ps can rally 100 handles, how much we're going to be able to take out the NASDAQ high. So a lot really riding on what happens on Friday. And my preferred idea is the dollar makes one more new high after the NFP, and stock indexes recover and rally into the end of the month. So, there's even some love in some of the marijuana stocks right now. I know Mike doesn't like this one, but it definitely has a nice little formation. I thought we'd get a third drive on it, and that hasn't happened. but you could see that we were diverging here, and looks like we're coming out of the hole here on sundial. So really the key is what happens with the 10-year. 10-year looks very bullish to me, and waiting for higher yields to filter through the rest of the markets like it filtered through high tech and mega cap growth tech yesterday. And don't get too heavily positioned from the NFP. I prefer to react to the reaction. And what I'm looking for in currencies is if it's they sell the dollar off on the NFP, I'll be looking to take advantage of that dollar weakness to buy it, and possibly look for another short in gold. Maybe it's going to be 1840 above the highs that we put in last week. Perhaps silver trades 2340, 2350. Again, one more shoe to drop. Definitely my conviction is being tested with the action that we're getting in both gold and silver and the dollar. But that's a business. You know, you have to be patient, stick to your guns until something changes. And then if it changes, you change, and you change your mind. So, you know, some of the yen crosses, I think, are going to be great shorts. One of the traditional risk-off pairs was Aussie yen, and I'd like to see a new high in Aussie yen. I think that will happen with the yen carrying it. One more high for 3 up here, and the S&Ps going up towards that level that I talked about, 100 handles from here. We'll see if we could manage that. And just want to point this out, that the gold silver ratio is moving sideways from the top. I still think it's got a chance to pop one more time, and that would be with silver leading to the downside one more time. So definitely my thesis is being tested right here. I'm not currently short, and I'm nervously not long, but we'll see what happens here in the coming days. Mike is going to be with you in an hour and 14 minutes. Tomorrow I have the interview with Anas El Haji. He's a professor and a doctor and a specialist in the energy complex, and look forward to seeing what he thinks. Are we going to head up towards new highs, or is this another failing rally? This is another reason why S&P's held up so well yesterday. Not as great today, but because of the oil shares were the leadership yesterday, as well as the banks. So this is an I don't know. I have a lot of I don't knows right here. I have views, but not enough, can I say, conviction to go ahead and start positioning myself for the final shoe to drop. And what I mean by final shoe to drop is one more high in the dollar, one more high in S&Ps, one more low in silver. So the tincture of time will resolve all of these things. I don't have to be involved until I have more conviction technically with price action. I need price action to confirm my opinions. So we'll see what happens here by the end of the week. Good hunting. Remember, the only thing you could control as a trader is risk. And if you're not doing that, you won't be a trader for long. So know where you're wrong when you get into the trade, before you get into the trade. Also know what you're looking for if you're right, or when you're right. And that's going to be a wrap today. I think we're going to have a pretty wild Friday. In the meantime, my high conviction trade right now is what I posted in the chat room, and that is Euro pound potentially bottoming here. So I invite everyone to come here and share their views, ask questions. Come to tradegatehub.com. It's a free community for traders to collaborate, share ideas, charts, trading suggestions, and welcome everyone who's hearing my voice right now to come and be part of our community. And remember, most of all, in this season with, COVID running rampant and divisions in our country and people not being on their best behavior is to be kind to one another, to be grateful. And if you're speculating in the market, you're in better shape than most people are. 80% in the world that would not even have that kind of risk capital because they need every dollar they have to have shelter and food and medicine. One thing I do want to talk about that reminds me of the interview that I had with Adam Button last Thursday. And I was asking Adam about what he was worried about for 2022, and it wasn't the Fed and interest rate increases. He was worried about continued lockdowns in China, and we did have another port lockdown in China. They're really trying to contain this, a very draconian. You know, they have the Olympics coming up next month, so they're trying to contain this. But I think there's also another story that if you think we're going back to plenty of supply, a wash in goods like we did in 2019 with the way we inventoried things, just in time inventory. Now we're in out of time inventory, and I don't think that China is going to cooperate. I think they want to decouple completely from the US in every way, and they're going to squeeze us. They're not selling something that Shy Girl talked about. They came out and said they're not going to be exporting fertilizer, and the grain market's really ripped on that yesterday. They're giving a little bit back today, but you know what? The Fed, I don't care how many times they raise rates, the Fed can't print corn. Okay, the Fed cannot plant soybeans, and this is a breakout. I talked about this harvest low came in the end of November. This was a harvest low right here at the end of October. So beans look good. I think they're going to go $20 plus. The corn looks good. Wheat still has a pretty good long-term formation on it. And I think you have to have some exposure in agricultural commodities. They're less interest rate sensitive. They're more about nature than the Federal Reserve. So something to keep in mind, there's DBA, there's all kinds of ETFs on the grains. There's some that combine grain and meats. You know, the president's complaining about meat prices. And I think that's an area that is worth investigating, doing your due diligence and having some exposure for. You know, you can't eat gold and you can't drink oil. So some of the things that we have been taking for granted, water and food, I think are going to become more in the forefront as there could be some problems with food security for a lot of people in our country, especially if Xi follows through, and I believe he will, decoupling from the United States and us not being able to depend on China as a reliable supplier as we have for the last 20, 30 years, which has made things like Target and Costco and Walmart awash in cheap goods because of cheap labor. And I think that is over. That paradigm is over. And the new paradigm is not just in time inventory, but not enough time inventory. So good hunting the rest of the day. I'll be back here with a NAS. Stay tuned for Mike. He'll be here in an hour and 8 minutes. Maybe he'll comment on the sector rotation that we've had when we were on the air yesterday. He did that. I don't think Apple's done, and perhaps that's what's going to carry the market forward. Thank you for your attention. I hope we're adding value to what you're trying to accomplish as a trader. It's not easy. And welcome you to come here and join us. And I'm not afraid of saying I don't know when I don't know. And I'm also open to letting you know when I'm wrong, because anyone who doesn't admit they're wrong, you have to run away from them. They're called revisionists. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong by the NFP on some of these positions, on Euro Pound, on Aussie, on cable. And good luck to you guys the rest of the day. Definitely tune in for Mike in an hour. And don't forget, if you're an oil person, you want to hear Anas El Haji tomorrow. Adios. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings.